Hello and welcome back to the Winning Agenda's Beta Avatar deck series. My name's Jesse Muirman Marshall, and of course, this series is proudly brought to you in collaboration with Haine from the Wizard's Den. So if you haven't already subscribed to the Wizard's Den, please go and check out Haine's channel at Wizard's Den on YouTube. So in this series, I've played two of the beta precon avatars against two of the beta precon avatars played by Haine, but in a constructed deck format. So what I've got here is the Flamecaller, one of the beta precon avatar decks. I've taken the avatar out, which you can see here on the screen, and I've made the best constructed deck that I can think of using the Flamecaller. So this is a first cut of what Flamecaller might look like if you wanted to take it to a constructed tournament and compete against the best meta decks. So Haine's done the same thing with the Geomancer, and in the other match on the channel, you can see that we've done the same with the Wave Shaper and the Spark Mage, which are the water and air avatar respectively. You can check out my deck tech for this Flamecaller deck on the channel. You can check out Haine's deck tech for the Geomancer deck on Haine's channel, and you can also see Haine's perspective for both this and the other match we played on Haine's channel too. So you can see how both of us navigated this game and see two perspectives on the same game, which is pretty cool. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Thank you, I should remember to say this in both videos, thank you to Simon and Chase for getting Haine and I involved in this series. We really enjoyed it, and thank you to the rest of the Sorcery team for putting together such a great product and for supporting Haine and I as content creators. So now let's dive into the game. So, we're looking at a dice roll for first, and I think from memory, Haine might have won that one. It's a little bit hard to tell without the audio. So we're looking at 3 spells. We've got a 2, 3, and 4 drop. Pretty good start. And we've got a tower that's not going to help us cast our 2 drop on turn 1, because of course our 2 drop is a Scorpions that requires a fire threshold, but it will help us cast our 3 drop on turn 2 or our 4 drop on turn 3 if that's what we want to do. So the tower still gives us some relevant acceleration, and of course the Flamecaller's ability, which allows us to use the threshold in our minions that are dead to effectively launch a projectile that deals some damage, is something that we're going to be looking to use later in the game, not so much earlier on. Haine's Geomancer ability is going to allow Haine to get some rubble whenever he plays an Earth site, which is right now, and then use that rubble to effectively get card advantage by playing the top card of his Atlas onto the rubble rather than having to draw it and then play it. So we're going to start off, we're on the draw here, so a little bit behind on the tempo. But that's kind of okay because it would be worse if it was the Flamecaller against the Spark Mage and we were on the draw behind on the tempo, I think, because Haine would have already a Spectral Stalker knocking on our door. Whereas this time, that Foot Soldier's starting all the way on the other side of the battlefield. Not only that, but we've got deserts to help us deal with some of the early 1-power minions that Earth might put out. So desert's definitely helpful in the matchup against villagers and against Earth generally. Not so helpful once Earth starts playing out all of the good massive minions, but good against the 1-power Foot Soldiers, which is something at least. So Haine does play a second Foot Soldier, but of course this is always a difficult moment as the Earth player staring down deserts is, do I move my Foot Soldier up so they're both on the same site? Probably not, because they're probably just going to get killed by a desert. So a Mix Air coming out for Haine, which is a really powerful one this early on in the game. It's going to allow Haine not only to avoid some air threshold, but also accelerate significantly into a big air play. So it could be a Grandmaster Wizard, could be one of many things. And we've got some Quarrelsome Kobolds coming out. So rather than playing the desert, that's an interesting choice. So I've gone with Quarrelsome Kobolds and Strike. And part of the reason for that is that the turn you play the Quarrelsome Kobolds, it's really important to have something to hit. So if we had played the desert first, killed the Foot Soldier, and then Haine hadn't moved up the Foot Soldier next turn, we may have actually been locked out from playing the Kobolds without them striking themselves or without hitting our own avatar. Whereas now the Kobolds have killed a Foot Soldier. Next turn they can move up and threaten to strike the avatar as well, except we've run into Root Spider, our nemesis. So this is one that, Root Spider is just one of the most powerful cards in the alpha constructed format because there are so few ways for decks to deal with it. So outside drawing a River of Flame, which we haven't drawn here, which can cast spells in the underground region, there aren't many ways for fire to be able to target a minion that's underground, and that Root Spider is really shutting down everything that we want to be doing here in terms of moving up our Quarrelsome Kobolds. So we're going to play a desert. We're going to move up the Kobolds anyway, and the reason we do that is that it basically locks that Root Spider down, and it means the Root Spider can't effectively come in and interact with our other minions elsewhere. So if we then attack Haine on this other axis on site 12, Haine's got to have another Root Spider, or risk those Quarrelsome Kobolds causing problems. The other reason we do it is that later in the game, if we remove that Root Spider, the Kobolds will actually immediately do 2 damage, and it will be 2 damage straight to the Avatar. So even though they're disabled at the moment, they're in a positive position, and a position to do some damage later, and they're also helping to lock down that Root Spider, which are 2 objectives that I'm pretty happy to achieve, as opposed to leaving them where they were going to either strike the Avatar or themselves at the end of the turn. But that Root Spider definitely doing some great work for Haine here. So that Mix Air still remaining uncracked, getting Haine up to 6 mana at the moment, potentially 7 once we see a play of a site here. And what that could mean is any number of things on Haine's side of the board. So Haine electing to tap the Geomancer and play a Windmill from the top of the deck, helping to fix for that air threshold. The Mix Air was going to help with the first air spell potentially, but having the air threshold there on the board helps with all the others. Beautiful art on that Geomancer there from Francesca Bayrold, who did the art for all 4 of the new beta precon avatars and has done just an outstanding job. They all look very, very cool. And very much playing into what Eric described as wanting the shadowy hooded figure who could be anyone on the front of on your avatars. I think it's a very cool thing to be aiming for as the game. Perhaps the Flamecaller who's got a bit of a goatee going on. Not quite as could be anyone as the other ones, but yeah, definitely the Spark Mage and the Geomancer and the Wave Shaper have some hooded could be anyone vibes about them. So a common sense tutoring up on Haine's side of the board. And then I think we're thinking here about whether we want to play the Petrosian Cavalry or the Clamour of Harpies. Okay, so the Desert is going to kill the Foot Soldier, and then the Sirocco Scorpion is going to attack up. And because we've only got that one site to attack onto, we kind of have this tough situation where do we want to play the Petrosian Cavalry and move them up there and then risk the Root Spider coming in underneath them both and getting Haine kind of a 2-for-1, or do we want to do something different? So we've got the Petrosian Cavalry attacking with charge and getting in there. Yeah, there we go. Although, of course, if Haine does move that Root Spider across, then the Quarrelsome Kobolds is unlocked. The other thing we have up our sleeves here is that Clamour of Harpies can teleport one of our minions away. So however Haine elects to move that Root Spider to try and get maximum advantage out of it, we can use the Clamour of Harpies to pull and teleport one of our own minions without striking it away from the top of the Root Spider to unlock it straight away, which is kind of pretty cool. So Haine getting 3 life off a Holy Ground, a bit annoying, given that we're kind of playing as the aggressor here. And with that mix hanging over us, we're kind of a little bit scared about what could be coming our way. So that Root Spider does take the 2-for-1 opportunity over on the right there. Says, I'm going to disable these 2 guys. You can have your Quarrelsome Kobolds back, which we're pretty happy about, assuming that we do get to move our Kobolds up onto the Geomancer's site there. Although a Dapperel Vampire is going to cause us a few problems, unfortunately. Although the Vampire goes in with a grapple shot. So in some ways that's annoying and frustrating for us, but in some ways it's kind of better for us to have a bit more freedom back with our Kobolds and with our minions. Although the Vampire, of course, is going to heal Haine up to 20 because its strikes cause Haine to heal. And in Sorcery, for those who aren't quite so familiar with the rules, you can't actually gain life past your starting life total. So the maximum that Haine was able to get there was 20. Accidentally drew those cards rather than untapping them, so we'll put them back there. Although, kind of would have liked to draw them, funnily enough, rather than untapping them that time. So drew a site, drew an air site, which is good for the Gaia Hippogriffs. We're not quite at the stage where we can play both Gaia Hippogriffs and Quarrelsome Kobolds, which would be good because it would allow us to kill the Dapperel Vampire. But we can move our Quarrelsome Kobolds back to kill the Dapperel Vampire if we wanted to do that. The other option we have is to teleport the Sirocco Scorpions, but then they're not going to do much for us. So yeah, I think we're going to have to throw the Gaia Hippogriffs into the Vampire. And then just kill the Vampire with our Kobolds, as awkward as that is, and then try and set up something better next turn using our Clamor of Harpies, because this was a big turn for Haine. Oh no, so we're not wasting the Hippogriffs, we're actually just using the double Kobolds. That's a much better play. Much better than me commentating, trying to come up with good plays. So both the Kobolds get to get in and hit the Vampire, and then we're threatening both the Kobolds coming in next turn and hitting the Geomancer if Haine doesn't have another Root Spider, or move the Root Spider across and unlock our 2 minions on site 12 there. So that double Kobolds, unless Haine has an Earthquake or something, which that would really get us right now. An Earthquake would kill all 4 of our minions and absolutely destroy all our best laid plans. But assuming that's not what's coming our way, it's a Clansman. Okay. Clansman I think we can deal with. So we can go down to 11. Untap the Flamecaller, draw a spell. And then we can reevaluate. So we do have this option with the Clamor of Harpies to teleport one of our minions across the board, which could be the Sirocco Scorpions. So we could play the Harpies on top of the Clansman, teleport the Scorpions over there, for example. And then we could be threatening this double Kobolds, which is 4 damage each, really, this turn. So it's a pretty big hit. And we do go for the Harpies, teleport the Scorpions. So now, wherever the Clansmen go, the Scorpions can follow them. And then the Harpies can get in next turn for 3, which is pretty nice. And we're going to presume that the Root Spider is going to move back across underneath the Quarrelsome Kobolds as well, to disable both of those, because they're threatening between them another 8 damage next turn, which is pretty big. That if Haine doesn't have something else, that's going to unlock our Petrosian Cavalry that the Root Spider is currently disabling, and then we've got the Petrosian Cavalry or the Gaia Hippogriffs for more charge attacks next turn. So we've got quite a bit of attack potential next turn. Part of the annoying thing about the way the game's playing out with the Root Spider, though, is that none of our fire minions are going to our cemetery. It's a good thing and a bad thing. None of our stuff's dying, but it is being disabled and staying on the board, which means our Flamecaller hasn't really got the opportunity to enter the battle as much as it otherwise would. So those Highland Clansmen, if they can grapple shot the Sirocco Scorpions, that's pretty good for them, for example. Or if there's some other way they can remove the Scorpions without fighting, Haine could put us to a pretty low life total. The Root Spider's going in to take out the Kobolds, which is fair enough. And we are kind of sitting on 5 mana, which is a bit of an awkward number, given that we've got 4 drops in our hand, because whatever we draw from our deck, we're probably not going to be able to double spell. But then if we draw sites, we're not going to double spell anyway. We're just maybe setting ourselves up to double spell later. So it is kind of an awkward spot with decks like this Flamecaller, where you don't really know what you want to draw. I'd say next turn is probably a draw a spell, tap to draw a site turn. Gives us probably maximum flexibility, because we're not going to be playing the site anyway next turn. Lots of powerful ramp and earth-air mid-range stuff going on here from Haine. Grapple Shards, Dapperel Vampires, even the Highland Clansmen to top out the curve, and then of course Root Spider to slow things down. So the Clansman attacks, and the Scorpions is going to defend. Haine's accepting that trade. And then we're going to Lightning Bolt the Harpies to get rid of those. Fair enough. And then another mix, and then cracking the mix straight away for another Vampire. Wow, so big turn from Haine there. And that's going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works for us. So we've only got 2 in the bin, unfortunately, for the Flamecaller to utilize. But the Clamor of Harpies is a great draw for us because it means we can attack with the Petrosian Cavalry. And if Haine blocks, then we can teleport one of our own Quarrelsome Kobolds out and kill the vampire at the end of the turn. It does put Haine back up to 16 though, is the problem with that play. So we're trading a Petrosian Cavalry for a Dapple Vampire, but we are rescuing one of our Kobolds from the Root Spider. So that's one choice. The other choice is to attack with the Petrosian Cavalry and then throw the Gaia Hippogriffs into it. That's much worse because that gets Haine 2 strikes with the vampire. So I think we're accepting that Vampire's very good against us and we just want to get it off the board as soon as possible. So we're attacking with the Cavalry. Haine's thinking about whether to defend, elects to take the damage. So then I think what we'll do is just play the Cavalry or the Hippogriffs. Probably the Cavalry should be on the other side of the board. I tap to draw a sight first, fair enough. Yeah, I think probably the best place to play the Cavalry onto site 9, which is that arid desert there, and then attack onto the Holy Ground. Although we elect to play the Hippogriffs and then attack onto the Holy Ground. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure what my thinking behind that one is, because the Petrosian Cavalry can't attack the Dapple Vampire, so if we keep the Hippogriffs in hand, it does give us the option to attack the Vampire if that turns out to be advantageous to us one turn. I guess the Hippogriffs can attack onto the Geomancer space next turn, but I don't really think that's that important for us here. We shall see how this works out. So presumably the Vampire is just going to eat the Petrosian Cavalry and put Haine back up to 10. Geomancer is going to tap to draw a sight out of rubble, unfortunately. And then the Dapple Vampire is going to attack in. Alright, well that worked out pretty well for us because now our Gaia Hippogriffs can... Oh no, spoke too soon. And a grapple shot as well to put us down to 3 and put Haine back up to 10. So they attacked sight and then attacked us and then buried the Hippogriffs. So no way can our Gaia Hippogriffs do anything here. They are straight in the bin. And another reason that playing the Petrosian Cavalry probably would have been better there is that it would have got us another fire threshold into the cemetery. But Infiltrate is a great draw here. It lets us turn the tables on that powerful minion that's otherwise causing us some significant issues and take it back for ourselves. So we can tap the Flamecaller to play the sight. Oh yes, I see. Deal 2 damage and then Kobolds kill it. Yeah. Interesting. So choosing to do that rather than the Infiltrate on the Vampire. I guess it gets a bit more power out onto the board for us. And it does rescue that Kobolds and present a bit more of a threat to Haine. And the Vampire, to be fair, if we had infiltrated it, wouldn't have been able to do anything for a couple of turns anyway, in terms of impacting Haine's life total. And also, of course, once we attack with it, Haine's going to get it back. So using the Flamecaller's ability instead. Also, of course, this is a game where we're trying to show off what the new pre-con avatars can do. So it was nice to be able to show the flexibility that the Flamecaller gave us on that turn there. Really comboing well with the Quarrelsome Kobolds, as it has all game. You know, being able to assemble together lethal amounts of damage from the Flamecaller ability, the Kobolds, Colicky Dragonettes, Arid Deserts, all these little chip damage options that Fire has in its toolbox. Being able to combine them together to take down big minions is very cool and can be very impactful and powerful. So that poor old lone Root Spider is really trying to hold back the tide here. Is it going to move up underneath the Harpies and the Kobolds? Because if it does, it kind of unlocks those Kobolds that are in a more dangerous position. So drew a spell, drew Minor Explosion, attack with the Harpies, attack with the Cavalry. So Haine didn't have a blocker, unfortunately. Attack with the Harpies, attack with the Cavalry, and then we've got the other Cavalry to follow up on the right flank there, on site 7, and attack in. and that's going to put Haine to death's door, and then we can move up our Flamecaller, move across our kobolds, and then strike the cavalry at the end of turn, which is not lethal, so that's a good way to use the kobolds' anger. Get it out on someone who it doesn't matter. And then the Flamecaller is now in range for the Minor Explosion, so that's why we've moved that up, because Minor Explosion has a range of 2 steps, which means that whatever Haine does with the Geomancer here, they're going to be in range for the Minor Explosion, or in range for one of our minions to take them down. So I think the Earthquake would still be a good out here for Haine. They could Earthquake, kill our 2 Petrosian Cavalries, rearrange things so that they're over on site 17, the space 17 instead, and then move the Root Spider underneath the Clamor of Harpies. But they'd still have to have a way to deal with our quarrelsome kobolds that could move up and cause them some problems next turn. And they'd also still be in range for us to move up with our Flamecaller and Minor Explosion them. So things looking pretty dire. Not many ways to get out of this one once we have that Minor Explosion in hand. Unfortunately, from Haine's perspective, the fact that the kobolds were able to combine with the Flamecaller to take out such a big minion, like a 5 cost, 4 power airborne minion, without us spending a card, because the kobolds remain on the board, has been really cool. And the Clamor of Harpies, even though it can't take out the Root Spider, being able to reposition our own small minions off the top of the Root Spider has been really impactful as well this game. Repositioning the Scorpions allowed us to take out the 7 cost Highland Clansman, and then repositioning the Quarrelsome Kobolds allowed us to take out the 5 cost Dapperel Vampire. So very good rate of return for the 4 cost Clamor of Harpies, because Haine can see that we've got minions that can attack any of the sites on the back row. And if Haine is to take out those minions, then we can move up a Minor Explosion anyway, even if Haine tries to move across to the side. So Haine's got a blink off to the side, draw a spell. So they're going to tap, draw a sight, play a vampire, which is unfortunately not going to be able to save them from 2 strikes from our minions. And then we're going to be able to finish it off on our turn. So we'll draw a spell, a Firebolts, we'll infiltrate the vampire, just to take control of that, and then we'll get in there with one of our minions. So good game. So thanks very much everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed that second matchup, the Flamecaller against the Geomancer. Both very, very powerful abilities. The Flamecaller letting us take out some big minions and use our smaller minions and smaller burn abilities in concert with it to take out some bigger threats. And of course, Haine's Geomancer giving some really strong card advantage throughout that game as well. So check out the Geomancer if you get a chance. As I said at the beginning, please check out Haine's channel where you can see Haine's perspective on these games. And just like the last matchup, I said this at the end of the other game as well, don't get the idea that Haine's deck was inferior or that my deck was really good, because we played 2 games and the only reason we used this one for the actual video was that in the other game Haine stomped me so hard that my deck didn't even really work. So thanks to Haine for being such a good sport in recording the games. Thanks to Haine, Chase, Simon, everybody who was involved in putting together this video series. We hope you've enjoyed. Hope this gives you a bit of inspiration and impetus to get involved with the beta avatars, start doing some constructed deck building and take them down to your local game store to play some games. And we look forward to seeing you for some constructed play in the contested realm. Thanks very much.